uploaded. All right, welcome to Indie World. My name's Steve Stanulis. I'm with JoJo Cottle.
Hi, guys. Welcome.
And welcome to our first show. And we have my buddy. A lot of history between us in 3 short years, Mr. Lillo Brancato.
Thank you both for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for coming. We're excited to get this conversation started.
Absolutely, and then we're gonna start a little bit from the past, and then we're gonna kind of bring up things to where we are today.
Okay.
What you have to do is, we had shot a documentary together called Wasted Talent.
Right.
And again, of course, as Page 6 does, which is a gossip column, made it sound like Lillo and I were best friends. I kind of got attacked by my former boys in blue, but nobody had seen the film. They didn't realize that it was an impartial documentary that had, as many people were praising Lillo, there was cops on it that were not so happy with Lillo, which Lillo was fine with. And, again, it ended up winning the best film in the New York City International Film Festival.
Right.
And, that's blossomed our relationship.
Yeah.
So for the people that don't know what Wasted Talent, this documentary is, can we go back and just sort of touch base on like what that is about and just give our listeners sort of more insight to what that is?
Well, it was about my rise, my fall, and then my road to redemption. But as Steve just mentioned, that's something that we made clear early on, that it would not be a puff piece. That we were going to make this in a way that was fair and impartial, and that's what we did.
Highlighting the lows and the highs, and not giving it just a one-sided view.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Which is fair. So it's not really fair that you were attacked.
Well, it's a gossip column. It's just amazing how people could read a gossip column, which is predicated on gossip, and take it as gospel. But again, when Lillo and I first met, I mean, he's a very endearing guy. And Lillo as well, we liked the dynamic that I was former NYPD. And, I told Lillo right off the bat, and stop me if I'm saying something that's untrue, that if we did do this, it couldn't be a puff piece. It had to be, there's going to be people that are saying negative things as well as positive, and he was okay with that, which was, I commend him for.
Right.
Right, because, any documentary made on my life I knew would be met with opposition. But
of course,
I thought the fact that he was a former member of law enforcement would offset a lot of that. And I just thought it was the best. It's telling a story from two sides.
Right.
And you have one person on one side and one person on the other side. So I thought that was the best way to tell this story, because it's going to open up a lot of wounds. You got the family taken into consideration, and they're going to have to relive this through this documentary. And for them to know that it was one of them on the other side in contributing and making this documentary would kind of make it a little easier for them to watch.
Right, and it's amazing how many people were misinformed, including myself. A lot of people, it was a tragedy any which way you slice it, but people thought actually Lillo was the one who killed the police officer. And the events that unfolded, if you saw it in a movie, once I found out and did my due diligence, it was almost like a series of unfortunate events, so to speak. You know what I mean? It was everything was just by happenstance, and it escalated. And unfortunately, what happened. But
so, what made you decide to go ahead and move forward with making this documentary? Both of you, actually. I'm very curious as to what brought this together.
That's a good question. Well, like I said, I thought Lillo, first of all, he's very endearing. If you watch the documentary,
and the feeling's mutual.
All that.
I'm not just saying.
No, but I'm just saying.
Little bromance going on over here, guys.
No, but what I'm saying, even like the first day of shooting, Lillo and I want him to share a little bit about that if they didn't see the documentary. Lillo basically, for the first 10 minutes of the film, is basically telling you about how he got discovered, and from the audition process to meeting De Niro but he's so there, and he's got such a photogenic memory. He can tell you dates, this, that, and it kind of sucks you right in. So, at first I was like, I don't know, if it's going to be entertaining, even though it's a great story, but watching it, he just sucks you right in. So, I thought it was a great story. I thought it was a story people can learn lessons from. And, Lee, if you could just, explain that transition from being Lillo Brancato, the everyday kid, now being in the biggest movie, arguably, not only that year, but maybe a generational type movie.
Well, it was, it was my summer vacation. I just finished 10th grade. And I had heard about Robert De Niro was going to make his directorial debut in a film called A Bronx Tale, and they wanted authenticity. That was the biggest thing that they were looking for, because they already had Robert De Niro, they had Joe Pesci, so these were the names that they were going to use to sell the film. But in some of the bigger roles, they wanted authentic and real people.
Right.
So I heard that they were looking for a kid around my age to play his son. And I was told since I was a young kid that I bore a resemblance to Robert De Niro. But I never really put much thought into, thinking I was going to be in this film. Such a long shot,
And did you have acting experience or anything?
No, I did
No.
not. No, I did not.
Okay.
So I was discovered on the beach, July 5th, 1992. I mean, I had heard about the film, like I mentioned.
Yeah.
And,
You sure was it July 3rd, 1992?
No, he's
No,
got
I'm
that
pretty sure it's the
photographic
5th.
dates.
I know,
Come
that's
on.
what
that was my dog Goldie's birthday.
Yeah, see that? Oh, there you go.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
So we always used to save some fireworks, light off for the dog
Right.
the next day.
There you go.
So, it was that day. And now it became real, because I heard several kids went to audition for the part. And, oh, yeah, Jerry went to read for the part. They're going to give him the part because they're using his aunt's furniture store in the film. So I was like, oh, really? I actually thought he was going to get the part. But that day became real. My brother got me out of the water. The guy was handing out flyers. I came out of the water. I met the guy. He was like, wow, he does look like De Niro. So I did a couple of impersonations for him. He liked me a lot. And he said, why don't you come tonight? It was a Sunday. He said, usually we're closed, but I want you to come to this address in the Bronx where the actual story took place, because we shot it in Queens. So I went down there. It's called the Belmont Playhouse. I had two of my friends drive me down there. I didn't know what to expect, because it's like, I didn't think I was going to get it, but why not go down anyway?
And keep in mind, he's never auditioned. He don't know what an audition really
Right.
is. He don't even know what an
Not
audition
even an
is.
actor.
Right. So.
Well, he's now.
Right. But
Yeah, so I went down. The guy's name was Marco Greco. He gave me a. Have you seen the film?
I have, yeah.
Do you remember the scene when I was shaving in the bathroom, and I asked my father some advice about the girl on the bus, the whole thing? Initially, in the original script, he was shaving, and it was a little different. It was some dialogue different, but that was basically the scene. He said, "Why don't you learn this scene, and see what you make of it. I'll come back in a little bit and we'll do it." And as soon as I looked at it, I just felt like something I could do. And I just knew interior bathroom night. I said, all right. I memorized my lines. He came back. I did it, and the guy loved it. He was blown away. He was like, wow, it was the best anyone's ever done that. And then we did some additional scenes. And then he asked me if I was Italian, and I said, yeah, I was, and that I'm actually Sicilian, like the character. And the character's name was Calogero. My father was from a little town, province of Agrigento, Sicily, a little town called Niro. It's like literally maybe 4,000 or 5,000 people. And in Italy, you have these like patron saints from different towns. And the one from that town happened to be Calogero. And that was like so, it just felt so right.
Right.
So the guy was like, wow, that's so coincidental. That's great. And, he really liked it. And this was back, in that VHS tapes.
Right.
So he put me on tape. And
That's amazing.
we exchanged phone numbers, and he said, why don't you call me in a couple of days, and I'll tell you how you did. And at that time, I was working at a law office. So I went to work the next day, came back. I remember I was making English muffins. I got a phone call, and it sounded some woman was very professional. Now, my dad, rest in peace, he was a builder, and he did, a lot of concrete. And so I thought it was just someone calling him for an estimate for a job.
Right.
And they said, are you Lillo? And I said, yeah. And they said, oh, I'm so-and-so down at Tribeca. We really love the tape. We'd like to meet you. So I went down to the address they gave me down on 375 Greenwich, which was De Niro's building. And when I went there the first time, it was very intimidating. You had like 40 different kids in the room, kids in the corner reading their lines, and it was like real actors and stuff. And I got a call back, and I just kept getting called back. And then I just saw I was pretty much the only one there. after like a week. So common sense would tell you that that's a pretty good sign.
Pretty good sign.
So then eventually I met De Niro. We did a screen test, and it was me and the kid who shot Sonny at the end of the movie, who's still a good friend today.
Yeah, that's okay. Tell them about that. Tell that story. It's a great story with the...
What, the audition scene? So everyone else, they were screen testing everybody. So now it's me versus this kid.
Okay.
The whole film would have been different. He was 21 years old. I was 16. So we did some scenes, and then it was the scene when Sonny accuses me of putting something under the engine in the car. And, you know, when he was smacking me around and stuff. So Phil went in first, and the doors were closed, and I was outside with my father, and we're listening. We could hear, but we can't see. So you hear Chaz, is it okay if I curse?
Yeah, absolutely.
So Chaz is screaming, where the fuck did you go with my car? So he's really smacking this kid, and you really hear it, like, you know, that's all, yeah, and I know that's this guy's face. And they're smacking him and smacking him.
Oh, yikes.
I'm like, wow. You know, and I'm thinking, I got to go in there after him. So he comes out, he's all disheveled, his shirt's ripped, and he's like, oh, good luck. And he's like,
That's great.
so then I go in. So I go in and do the same thing. So then I remember doing it, and they didn't hit me once. We were doing the scene, and they didn't hit me once. And I came to find out a few days, you know, I asked De Niro one day when we had a moment. I said, hey, Bob, remember when we did the screen test and you guys, like, were, you know, really giving it to Phil? I said, but you guys didn't hit me. I said, what was the reason for that? And he said, we didn't have to hit you. You gave us what we needed without us having to do that.
Right.
I said,
there you
wow.
go.
Like, wow. That was a really,
You're able
you
to
know,
bring it
And then-
without...
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then just, again, not just to lead you down the road, but just when you got the part, again, that's my favorite, another part of this great story, when you got the part.
Yeah, well, the phone call, you know, I went in, the audition was, the screen test was a Thursday. Usually I was going down every day. Friday, they said, we'll call you over the weekend. Friday, I didn't go back. So now this whole weekend was like the longest weekend of my life. So finally on Sunday, I get a call. It was the lady, Robin Chambers. She calls me up and she says, Lillo, Bob would like to see you tomorrow at so-and-so time. So I go down with my father. He's on the 8th floor, which requires a key in the elevator. Get up to, there's a balcony. And we're on the 7th floor. So it was like a big, you know, sofas. And I was there with my dad. And De Niro, at that point, I knew my dad. They used to speak in Italian. They were around the same age. So De Niro, and very respectful, he called my dad Mr. Brancato,
Right.
you know. So, hey, Mr. Brancato said, Lillo, come up. So I go in the room, and I know this is, you know, he's going to tell me if I got the part or not. So I'm, you know, I'm just looking at this man, and, you know, and De Niro's like, you know, he'll make like 5 facial expressions and say one word. But that's what he's doing, and he's looking at me. It was like very ambiguous. It could have went like, we like you, but, you know, Phil was here longer, and we just think, but he's like, you know, what did I choke, you know? So finally he says, we watched, you know, everything that you did, and we really liked it. And he goes, and you got the part. I said, oh, wow.
Oh,
you know,
my
like,
God. And that's how it happened.
yeah. So I says, you know, I promised my mom I would call. He says, and I remember he had a phone in the bathroom. He says, if you want to go in the bathroom, you can call your mom.
Why did you have a phone in the bathroom? What the heck?
I don't know. So then
Business calls.
when I went out, told my father was excited. It was a great day. It was a great day. It was probably one of the best of my life.
Wow.
You know?
So,
That's so exciting.
again, a lot of people, when they think of, you know, they think Lillo, they think a lot of times Bronx Tale and The Sopranos. But, I mean, not everybody, but that's what I feel a lot of people associate with a lot of times. But you did get the lead in over Mark Wahlberg in Renaissance Man.
Right, wasn't really the lead, but there was a pivotal scene in Renaissance Man. I don't know if you saw that.
I haven't, no.
Danny DeVito loses his job, and then he gets a job teaching misfits in the Army. We were called the Double Ds, dumb as dog shit. So there was Danny DeVito's his approach to how he was teaching us was criticized by one of the characters, Gregory Hines, because he was teaching us Shakespeare, and they didn't know if that was really appropriate for what we were doing. We're in the Army, and there's a scene at the end where Gregory Hines were in the rain, and DeVito comes when we're doing all stuff in the rain and we're out there, and Gregory Hines kind of calls DeVito out in his teaching approach through one of the characters by asking him, to recite Shakespeare. And Penny Marshall, rest in peace, had auditioned all the actors in the film for that one particular scene, and I was the one who got it. It was the St. Crispin's Day speech from Henry V.
Yeah.
It was, it took a long time to learn. I worked with a Shakespeare coach, and
Wow.
it was, great to see after it was all said and done.
That's really cool.
And then obviously Crimson Tide with Denzel.
Yeah.
It's an extensive
Yeah,
resume.
it sounds like you've done a lot of
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
But again, I don't want to go down the same boring road, but just explain how easy it is, and again, to go from Lillo on the beach to Lillo in the Bronx Tale, now landing all these big roles. If somebody just came from obscurity and starts getting all that access, how easy or how quickly can things spin out of control if you're not prepared?
See, that's exactly that's the key right there. Proper preparation for something like that is key. That's something I didn't have. My parents were immigrants, and just like I was plucked from obscurity. I was on the beach, and here I am making films. And my parents, you smoke marijuana, it's like, oh my God, it's like sticking a needle in your arm with these. So, I mean, it's my grandmother told me once, it takes a second to get into trouble and a lifetime to get out of it. And it happens that fast.
Oof.
It happens that fast. And I didn't realize the road I was going down. And that's, that was another big reason why I wanted to do Wasted Talent. And when I did it, because I had been approached several times to do the documentary, for many different reasons. But then it was just like the perfect storm. I met Steve, his law enforcement background.
Right.
And, and I also work in drug treatment, doing outreach work. I work for a company, Amatus Health. And, I make videos for them. I do outreach work. I do all kinds of things. And they actually had me do one video on fentanyl.
Oh.
Because this is, it's a cheap, and it's 10 times more powerful than morphine.
Yeah.
And it's being used by drug dealers to cut their drugs, for, greater profit margin. It's just, and they're getting this stuff from Mexico, they're getting this stuff from China, and it's so dangerous.
It's so dangerous, and it's killed, a handful of people that I know.
Yeah,
which is
the
very
fentanyl is what's, at first it was only the opiates because that's what it is. But now they're repressing pills with fentanyl. They're cutting cocaine with fentanyl. There's been so many fentanyl-related deaths.
Right.
And I just thought to myself, there's no better time than right now. And hopefully there's kids out there that can learn from this documentary and to see how I went from here to here.
Right.
There was no middle point. It went from here to here.
And just for the people who haven't seen the documentary, was there a turning point for you where you went from here to rock bottom, like when you went from high to that absolute low, or was there one specific point, or was it just like a culmination of kind of snowball avalanche effect that sort of brought you down?
Right. But then, I met this girl in 2003, and we had been together for a few years. And I lived with her, and it was, like when I lived with my parents, it was much harder to get high the way I wanted to. She was a college girl. She was younger than I was because the girlfriend before that was like 6 years older, and all she wanted to do was get married. I didn't want to do that. So then I met someone younger, and then we had been together for, a few years. She wanted to go to medical school and be a doctor, so it came to the point where my drug addiction had gotten so out of control. She broke up with me. I went back home. Was heartbroken over this. Continued to use more drugs, and when I would go by the house, she would call the cops. And so I needed to find a loophole to go to the house. So I became friendly with her father. Her father lived downstairs, and he was already a 2-time felon. He was, bad guy. And I started hanging out with this guy, and we started snorting heroin together, and doing all kinds of crazy things and driving around, smoking crack for 4 or 5 days, delusional, taking the whole the whole dashboard off, hiding stuff in
Yikes.
there, thinking people are following us. You know, like seriously,
Right,
driving down one ways, like
Right, no,
because we
yeah.
think somebody's following us. So he's
Absolutely.
like, just drive down a one way. If they're still following us, then they're following us.
Right.
So it's like I'm looking in the rear view mirror and I'm knocking off side mirrors, and this is what
Goodness.
and eventually led to the fateful night of. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, we could. Yeah,
I didn't know if you wanted to talk about something.
No. Like I said, I would leave it up, giving you the platform. Wherever you want.
I thought that was a good segue.
Absolutely,
Yeah, absolutely.
without a doubt.
Go for it.
Which led to the fateful night of December 10th, 2005. Now, we had never went out together where it was after hours. I'd meet him at the bar. We'd go get drugs. I'd drop him back off. Or we'd drive around and smoke crack. It was never really...
And this, again, is your ex's father.
Right.
Okay.
He was 48 at the time, and I was 29. So he calls me up. I was in for the night. It was a rough day. I remember my car got impounded the night before. I was dope sick the whole day. I finally got some heroin, and I was home, and I never shot it. I used to snort it. And then this was during the Nextel era. I had my phone on the charge. I just shut my light off. The TV was off. And then the two-way radio goes off, and it's Lillo, you feel like getting a drink? And I said, yeah, all right, because I knew what that would entail, smoking crack and snorting heroin and strip clubs. And so we did all that.
So chicks, drugs, sex.
Yeah.
Well, let me think about that.
So we went there, we're smoking crack. We only had a limited amount of heroin. The crack cocaine eats the heroin high, so you become dope sick. We tried to get in touch with our dealer. He didn't have anything. So this is when, desperate times call for desperate measures. And this is when I went to an old friend's house who I hadn't seen in many years. His name was Kenny. And he lived next door to an ex-girlfriend, the little kid from the Bronx Tale. His sister was my first love. So this guy lived next door. He was a Vietnam veteran who I'd met, and he was like real loopy. He was all messed up from the war, and he had tons of drugs in his house. And I used to walk right in his house in the middle of the night. The door would be open, and I'd be sleeping on his couch, and he'd give me Valium to calm down if I fought with my girlfriend. And people don't understand this. They don't understand this. And that night we went there, and I hadn't seen him in many years, but it's a guy like that's not going to just stop using drugs. It doesn't happen like that.
Plus, you're already fucking high.
Right.
So you're not, at this point, it doesn't matter. Whatever you need to do to get your fix.
Yeah, but I wasn't robbed. I wasn't looking to rob him.
No. What I'm saying,
I'll break a window to get high, and
right,
I did do that.
Right, but what I'm saying is when you're in that state, and I've been, sometimes you're in places or with people you would never be with in your life, but, because you're doing whatever you're doing, so yes, so you would go to an old friend's house in a pinch, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and you lose that consequential thinking. You don't think consequences, you think here and now. And even one of my, so I went there, broke a window, tried to get his attention. A New York City police officer who was off duty, lived next door. He heard the broken glass, came out to investigate. I was walking away, and he screamed, "Don't move." I turned around, moved, and he started shooting at me. And he shot me once, twice, and then a graze hit me. So now I'm like holding my stomach, and there's like blood squirting everywhere. And
Yikes.
the guy I'm with is still in the alley, so I'm out of there. I don't have a gun. I'm afraid. I didn't know this guy was a cop. I didn't even know where he came from. All I heard somebody say, "Don't move." And plus, I was out of my mind. I was smoking crack. I was snorting heroin. I was drinking alcohol in the strip club. So I was like, he could have came from the sky. He just appeared and he started shooting. So then I got out of there. I heard some more gunshots, and then I heard a sound, a really loud bang. It didn't sound like the gun that was shooting me, because I heard additional gunfire from the same gun that had just shot. Not that I'm a ballistics expert, but it was just... So additional gunfire, then boom, like a real loud boom. I felt the vibration in the ground, and then I make it. I was gonna, at that point, my fight or flight kicked in, so I was like pretty strong. I was a little scared, but I was pretty strong. I was able to get all the way down the corner, get to my car. I was gonna get to the car, come back around, and get the guy. But then by the time I got to my car, I just felt really weak. I went to the corner and I just collapsed against the building. Next thing you know, we're under the elevated train right on Westchester Avenue and Arnall Place in Pelham Bay in the Bronx. So cops come, down the street, and they weren't responding to the call. They were just getting bagels. Like later on I read the report, they were at a place called Holy Bagels. They heard gunshots. So they get out of the car, and the guy sees me again, and he goes, "Oh my God!" He goes, "Look who it is! It's the kid from the Bronx Tale." So he sees me up, and he goes, "What happened? Who the fuck shot you?" He goes, "Was it him?" And I didn't even notice the guy, Steve, I was with, was walking down the street. He's got the gun in his hands. And I said, "No." I said, "No, it was the bald guy down the street." And that's not even a statement. That's considered a spontaneous utterance, and they have that. You know what I mean? So there was no knowledge of cop, but I'd like to share something I've never shared before. But like a burglary is defined as when you knowingly enter and remain unlawfully. That's the first part of the crime, with the intent to commit a crime therein. So that means you can't be there. You can't be, but you still go, and the intent to commit the crime was formed prior to the unlawful entry.
Right.
Okay, so not supposed to be there, and you're going to commit a crime.
So just to go back a bit, did you actually enter, or did you just break the window and then ran?
Just broke the window, and
Got it.
Because I wasn't looking to go in. All I was doing was looking to get his attention. Kenny, right? So now I'm screaming, nothing. That's when I was walking away, and that's when he came out the other side. But and they specify if you felt that you had license or privilege to be there, it's not a burglary. Now, as I was walking back to the car, leaking blood, fighting for my life, these two independent witnesses, they were a husband and wife. Their name was the Montalvos, and they needed translators when they were on the stand. They heard a unfamiliar male voice screaming, "Kenny, Kenny," in desperation, which we later on established was my voice. That was me, okay? Screaming Kenny. Kenny's the occupant of the apartment
that you were trying to
get into. Okay, and I think that's another spontaneous utterance. And these spontaneous utterances come from the subconscious. There's no thought put into that. It's just reaction, because this is what's going on back here. Okay, and I'm going to tell you why that's so important. I didn't scream, "Mommy," because I thought I was going to die. I was fighting for my life. I didn't scream, "Mommy." I didn't scream, "Police." I didn't scream, "Steve," but I screamed for one person, and that was Kenny, okay? Now, in that screaming, in that time of desperation, I'm screaming for someone to help me. Now, I screamed him specifically because obviously this is where I thought I had my most legitimate shot at getting help.
Right.
So that speaks volumes about the fact that I thought I had license and privilege, that we were friends. Right. You know what I mean? My own friend Charlie, we put him on the stand, and he testified to the fact that Lillo used to climb through my window all the time.
Right.
You know what I mean? And he lived with his aunt. And I'd be in his house. He'd be like, "Lillo, what the hell are you doing?" Right. And I'd climb through his window because that's what I did. But I wasn't looking to burglarize him because I know he had a back surgery. And then I used to get the OxyContin. So I know he had him in the house. So if I wanted to get high, I'm climbing through his window. I'm not going to hurt him or anything. I mean, is that normal? No, it's not. But you don't do normal things when you're on drugs.
Right.
And this is why it's so important. A lot of people should watch this documentary, see what I went through, because, I got lucky. Because usually you die,
Right. And then what was the final straw of the bottom of the bottom of the bottom when you decided that you're sober how long?
November 18th, it'd be 13 years.
13 years. So the day before November, you said 13th?
November 18th.
I'm sorry.
It's going to be 13 years on November 18th.
It was November 17th, the bottom of the bottom, or what was the bottom to say, "Listen, I'm done"? What was your bottom?
I mean, I even overdosed while I was behind bars. I was still getting drugs. I was going to church, and we were at the medical dorms. You got guys getting morphine. And then there's a lot of gang members in Rikers Island, Bloods and Crips. And I had this one Blood kid. He was getting heroin. And they were bringing it in through the mailroom because the mailman got locked up, too. It was on Eyewitness News and everything.
My goodness.
Yeah, a lot of corruption. And I was, on November 12th, I overdosed in my cell. I snorted 4 bags of heroin. I took like 25 morphine pills, and I was still going after that. I was still going after that. And one day when I was in punitive segregation, it's like the hole, I got a visit from my cousin and my friend Corey. They're both attorneys. They were able to come on an attorney visit. And they were so disappointed when they saw me. Like, I was like, hey, guys. Like, as they walked in the room, and they were very disappointed in, saying that you got all these people behind you, and we want to see you beat this case, and we love you, but you keep doing this, and you're going to have no one there for you. And for some reason that day, it just, I don't know, it just stuck. And something just really told me that, you know what, I got to stop. I have to stop. And it's like, I consider it a modern day miracle, because that day something in my mind just changed.
Right.
It just changed. It just my way of thinking. It just changed that day. And I'm very grateful that it did, because not everyone experiences that. And,
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, that's also, and the cool part is that you've taken that negative, and you've turned it into a positive. And now, like I said, you're out there speaking to people. You're speaking to kids. You're doing all this stuff to bring awareness, to show that look at me. If it happened to me, it could happen to anybody. So, and to be sober for 13 years, again, it's commendable. I know it's not easy. And again, I mean, it's shown in your work. We just did a film together called The Fifth Borough. It's coming out in February. February 7th. No, I'm sorry. January 17th, it's premiering at that festival. Okay. And then it's coming out on Netflix in February. But Lillo has one of the main roles of the crew. And I would say, putting it together, that it was the most, not emotional role, but it had a lot of layers to him.
Yeah.
And I mean, he did a phenomenal job, which people are going to see.
I'm excited to see it. Yeah, that sounds really interesting.
And I mean, really brought it. I mean, again, from what the stories he used to tell me, it was nothing what I expected. I mean, he was the first one on set, always prepared, and again, he really, really, took it and killed it. So, again, and I think people see this, it's only going to open more doors, which I think, I think obviously should happen and be the next step. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I have nothing but, a lot of respect. And again, there's still people today that you probably were so-called friends or people you worked with that kind of that kind of distance themselves from you only because of
Absolutely.
They don't want to be associated for not because they don't like you, more because
I'm more in fear of what other people would think
right.
of them associating with me. Well, and that's okay. I mean, I can't control that. All I can control is me.
Right.
And what I do on a day-to-day and making the best decisions possible. That stuff, that kind of comes with the territory. I made bad decisions, and I ended up where I ended up. And let's face it, I have to take responsibility that another human being lost his life, and my drug addiction, my bad decision making, definitely made a contribution in that man's death. And I think about that every single day. And when people try to paint me to be like some monster and stuff, I'm not like that.
Right.
This kid this heroic police officer, Daniel Enchaltegui, I was 29. He was 28 years old. He was younger than me. He was a kid. And, he was doing what he was supposed to do like anybody else in his situation would have done. Heard broken glass. He thought somebody was in danger. He lives there, and he went out off duty and, tried to see if everything was okay. And it cost him his life. Right. And I respect that. And I respect, the police, the law enforcement in general. I didn't realize until this situation how powerful they are. And the reason why they're powerful is because they stick together. They're one big group. It's not NYPD. It's the whole country. Right. Just you're a cop, I'm a cop, we stick together. Right. And that's something you got to respect. And I really respect that. And that's from the heart, not to sound good or, I'm trying to be politically correct. I respect that.
Right. Well, thanks for sharing all of that. That's really, I mean, obviously not an easy thing to relive and then relive again and then relive again. And it's over and over and over. And unfortunately, you're going to have to do that. But I really appreciate it. And I know Steve does.
Absolutely.
Just to share that with us and our viewers and listeners. So
yeah. Now,
thank you.
Yes. Thank you. But to get some other things, I just want to.
Yeah, I have a question,
Okay.
guys. How do you know each other besides? I mean, unless it's just a wasted talent.
Yeah, well, that's how everything.
Yeah, we met through a mutual friend.
Okay.
Yeah.
He brought us together and thought it would be interesting, and being that he was a former member of law enforcement,
Right.
just the dynamic between the two of us, and then I did it. The mutual friend of ours thought it'd be a good idea. Out of respect, I said, okay, I'm willing to sit down. But I didn't know what I really thought of the situation,
Okay.
because upon hearing, I'm thinking like, oh, this is like something that they're gonna have me do or want me to do, and it's gonna make me look like a junky piece of shit. And but then when I met Steve, I said, you know what? I don't think that's gonna be the case. This guy was really cool, and he seems like he's gonna be fair. And we agreed on doing it.
Right.
And this was 3 years ago, right?
Yeah, 2017, right? It's
Yeah,
crazy.
right.
And again,
wow.
it's on Amazon. It's on Amazon Prime. It's Fandango. All these different, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's so-
Voodoo.
Voodoo. Yeah, I was gonna say. I think I
I had
saw
the whole
Voodoo.
list when I used to post it. It's a little list by my bed.
But I'm gonna give you a quick speed round in closing. I'm gonna give you some quick questions, and you just tell me off the top of your
I
head.
just want to mention a couple of other things. Victor's thing and the other things. He'll
Yeah, no, please do, please. So before we start my little round robin game here, what
ahead,
else
yeah.
are you doing?
No, I got a couple of other films that I did. One with a good friend of mine. His name is Victor Rios. We met online. He's got a successful pest control company. In that film, I'm playing a member of law enforcement, which is definitely going to be met by opposition. I'm
wow.
one of the producers on that. That should be coming out, hopefully, sometime next year.
Okay. Look out for that, guys.
Yeah, and then I have another film called Made in Mexico, where I play like a Mexican cartel guy. My friend Rodney Rinks wrote it and was co-director, and Mario Lopez, extra, he's a producer on it, an executive producer on it. So I'm really blessed to have those things going on.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And also, I was mentioning that I work for a health company called Amatus Health. We're a dual diagnosis. Basically, what we are is a national treatment provider for those suffering from mental illness and substance abuse disorders. And so that's something that I take a lot of pride in, because I realize that it works hand in hand. The more successful I am at making films, it just further shows that recovery is possible.
Yeah,
and it's not really telling people, but it's showing them. Because like when you're in the depths of hell and in the grips of addiction, the disease kind of tells you that you're worthless and it's going to consume you and kill you. And you don't think about ever coming back.
Right.
But I'm letting people know that it's very possible and that you can come back, and you can come back better
You can come back
by
better.
learning from the mistakes that you made than you did before.
And turn your life around.
Right,
and
absolutely.
Continue on
Never
the path
too
you're
late.
meant to.
Never too late.
That's awesome.
I agree.
I'm glad everything's working out and you're busy.
Thank you. brother.
So I'm going to give you 10 quick questions, right off the top of my head.
Okay.
All right. I need. You sure you're ready for this?
Oh, it's water first.
Yeah, drinks the water.
And,
Yeah.
All right, ready?
Go.
Did you ever have any type of physical relations with the girl from Bronx Tale, the African American girl?
No, I did not. We did some reunions for the Bronx Tale. I saw her. She's such a sweetheart. Really great girl. No. Actually, when we did the scenes, the kissing scenes, because I don't
You
smoke.
just ruined the fantasy.
Yeah, I know. But she used to tell them, because I smoked, so before every take, she would have me gargle with the mouthwash because I was a smoker.
She's like,
So-
I'm not kissing
Yeah,
him.
so
he
he
smokes.
smokes. So no.
I would have been
no,
the same way, to be honest.
Most talented actor you ever worked with.
Ooh.
Let's take De Niro out. This way you don't have
Yeah,
to
I mean, because
feel
De Niro,
or an obligation. So
I gotta say, it's a tie.
between
Gandolfini and Denzel Washington.
Ooh.
that's a good time.
Yeah, those two guys.
Yeah, I worked with Gandolfini. I never worked with.
I mean,
Actually,
I want to
think-
say
yeah,
one,
I've
but then I
worked
think
with-
of the other, and I
Right,
can't say.
yeah.
Just like
What made them? What did they do that made you?
just the way they bring the emotion so fast, from 0 to 60, bang.
Right.
You know.
Shoot their fire out of their eyes.
Yeah, you know, and it's so natural and it's so real, and you know, I mean, working with these talented, you know, actors. I mean, it doesn't. I mean, Gandalf. I mean, this, you know, just like the scene in the Sopranos.
And they're totally different too, which is
right.
funny. But they're both great.
Both great in their own way. I mean, just doing these scenes, it felt so real. It's like you weren't even acting, but they help you. They help you get there.
Right.
You know what I mean? Their level of talent helps you get there.
That's amazing.
To almost, well, not that level, but you know, somewhere close enough.
Your biggest starstruck moment, besides working with me.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say that's yeah.
Besides me.
You know, my biggest starstruck moment, because with De Niro, it kind of like happened, and it was expected. Mm-hmm. But when we were doing Bronx Tale, we were doing the ADR. You know what that is?
Yep.
The automated, you know,
Yep.
the additional dialogue recording in the studio on 1619 Broadway. It was the fall of 1993.
Okay.
So we're in the room, in the soundproof room, and it's dark in there. You know, you get the mic, and so Robert De Niro is in there, and I got my back to the door, and I hear the door open. So he says, Lillo, come here, I want you to meet someone. So now they're in the dark corner, and you have De Niro with this guy who's about like 5'5", 5'6", and he's there, he's got the beard. And in his eyes, I could see, like, I know this guy.
Okay.
I know this guy. Who is this guy?
Yeah, who is this guy?
So he said, Lillo, I want you to meet Al.
I knew you were gonna say that.
Yeah, he said, I want you to meet Al. And Al's like, you know, it's not like Lillo. It's like, you know, but it's Al. So who's Al? So it was Al Pacino. Mm-hmm. And he says, I got to tell you, kid. And once I heard him, he said, I got to tell you, kid, the Bronx Tale is terrific. So he's sitting there in the corner, and I was like, whoa. Once I heard the voice,
right.
Al.
So
and then I was like, okay, now I know who he is. And that was I got choked up.
Of course.
Yeah.
Who was the hottest chick you ever worked with?
Oh, Steve, come on.
Yeah.
We're more than just looks.
No, of course, of course. But these are the things. Yeah, I think people find a little interesting.
You know what? I got to be honest with you. It was this girl that I worked with. I don't think anybody would know her, but she was a beautiful girl. We did this thing called Dead Man's Gun. I don't know if you remember. It was a Showtime. It was a show.
Okay.
It was a gun touched by evil.
Okay.
And every episode, the gun would end up in someone else's hand, and then their lives would be touched by evil.
Ooh.
So it was a romantic comedy.
Yeah. So.
Wait, what?
No. Okay.
So there was this girl. Her name was Lelania Ginsberg.
I got an IMDb her.
And I got to tell you, it was like, because we had like a little love scene.
Okay.
And it was like, this takes place like way back in the day where I'm like this Italian guy, you know, the whole thing. And I'm coming across the country in a horse and carriage. And I meet her on the way, and her family was in the guns there. And her family was killed. And I kind of take her under my wing, and we're in the horse. And she's like Swedish. And, you know, we have the whole thing. And we really got to know each other. And then we did like the love scene at the end. And I got to tell you, it felt really real. She was a beautiful girl, nice person. Haven't seen her, spoke to her, even heard anything about her. But that's
IMDb her.
Lelania Ginsberg was her name.
Watch out, girl. He's coming for you.
Yeah.
I'm just
Well, I'm not allowed in Canada, so she don't have to worry about that.
No, she means
No,
me.
I meant Steve.
She meant me. My next cast.
Yeah, she don't got to worry about me.
That's fun. And then, other than Bronx Tale as the role of C, which role are you most proud of?
I did a film called RXmas. Abel Ferrara, do you know who that is? He did King of New York, Bad Lieutenant.
Yeah, legend.
Yeah,
A crazy legend.
Yeah. I did a film with him called RXmas. I play a Dominican like drug dealer, and I think I was pretty good in that film. And she got some really good reviews, all positive stuff. And there was I even sang in Spanish in that movie. It was something where I really went out there.
You want to close out and sing a little song for us?
Oh, okay.
No, Joe.
But they've got you all over the place, like very ethnically ambiguous, like everywhere. That's amazing.
And then the role. Your last question. The role you were most. Let's rephrase it. what's the film or the role you thought was going to be a home run? Like this is the next Bronx Tale. That was a total bust.
Or just something that just really challenged you.
Well, those are two kind of different questions.
Really?
But yeah, you can answer both of them. No,
yeah.
but answer both of them.
Well, our Xmas was very challenging.
Okay.
The one the Made in Mexico, that was pretty challenging, playing the whole accent and stuff. But there was a film we did. I didn't think it was going to be the next Bronx Tale because those are big shoes to fill. Not because of me. I'm just saying the film in general,
Right.
De Niro's directorial debut. But I did a film in the year 2000. It's called In the Shadows. We had Cuba Gooding Jr., James Caan, and I had a nice role in that. My name is Jimmy Perazzi. I was like a stuntman, moonlighting as a stuntman, and like organized crime family back home. And James Caan was like, James Caan was one of my idols. I love him. I don't know if you ever saw the film Thief.
Of course,
Yeah.
that's one of my favorite films ever.
Yeah. I mean, that guy, Sonny in the
I'm going to bring you up on these. Jojo.
yeah, Sonny
Steve's
in the
got
guy.
everything's his
It's
favorite.
such-
He knows everything.
Watch that
Just
movie
kidding.
Thief. It's Michael Mann.
Okay,
and
I'm gonna
it's
have to
like,
see it.
I mean, he's so good, right? The leather jacket
Yeah,
with
yeah.
the car.
Yeah.
It's like beautiful movie. And and I worked with these guys. And I'm thinking, how could you go wrong with this cast?
Right.
And, we shot the film. I mean, all the dailies, everything looked great. And it just never went anywhere. I expected it to be a
Oh, I
lot
see.
bigger.
Okay.
I mean, I made some good relationships, met some good, good people. Rick Waugh, his brother Scotty, good people, really good people. And the father, he had passed away, but he was a real stuntman, and that's what inspired the son to write the film,
Awesome. Well, on behalf of myself and JoJo, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Actually, our first guest of Indie World.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Really
So,
excited.
and I
This
couldn't
is
think,
fun.
and I couldn't think anybody better, honestly.
Thank
And
you, brother. I
a
appreciate
big
that.
round of applause
Yeah,
for
thank you so
much
Lillo.
for
Thank
coming.
you for coming, and thank you, brother.
Appreciate that.
And before we go, real quick, is there anything you want anybody else to know about you personally, Lillo, the person, that somebody wouldn't know watching you? Are you anything like C?
No, I'm not like C.
Is a working man a sucker?
Working man is not a sucker.
And they,
My dad was like the hardest working guy in the world.
God bless him. God bless him.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Lillo Brancato, thank you for coming for Indie World. We'll see you next week.